Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1, She Acted Normal Until I Found Her Secret. I never believed in true roommate horror stories. I thought they were exaggerated, clickbait, people turning awkward living situations into fake nightmares for attention. That belief died in the apartment where I lived with her, and it died the night I realized my roommate wasn't trying to hide something. She was containing it. I moved into the apartment because I had no choice. The city was expensive, my job was new, and I needed something fast. The building was old, too old, the kind of place where the hallway lights flicker even when no one is around, and the air always smells faintly of dust and damp wood. The listing was short: private room available, quiet apartment, one roommate, no pets, no visitors after midnight. That last rule felt strange, but desperation makes you ignore red flags. When I arrived, she was already there. Her name was Elna. She looked normal, almost painfully so. Average height, plain clothes, hair always tied back neatly. Her face had a softness to it, like someone who never raised their voice. When she smiled, it felt polite rather than warm, as if smiling was something she had learned to do, not something that came naturally. She showed me around the apartment: living room, kitchen, bathroom. Then she stopped at the end of the hallway. "That door is yours," she said, pointing to the room on the left. "Mine is at the end." Her door was different, thicker, older, and fitted with two locks. I noticed it immediately. "Security conscious?" I joked. She looked at me for a moment too long. "Something like that," she replied. The first 2 weeks were quiet, too quiet. Elena barely spoke unless necessary. She left early every morning and came back around the same time every evening. She never brought anyone home. No friends, no family, no delivery people. At night, the apartment felt empty, even when she was there. She didn't watch TV. She didn't play music. Sometimes I wondered if she even slept. But the strangest thing, her door never opened. I never saw inside her room. Not once. Every time she entered or exited, she did it quickly, closing the door behind her and locking it immediately. I once heard her checking the locks twice, sometimes 3 times, like she was afraid of forgetting or afraid of something getting out. The first sound happened on a Tuesday night. I remember because I checked the clock. 2:13 a.m. I was half asleep when I heard it. A soft dragging noise, like fingernails brushing slowly across wood. I sat up in bed, my heart already beating faster than it should have. The sound came again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. It was coming from the hallway. No, from her room. I held my breath, listening. Then came a dull thud. Not loud, heavy, as if something inside her room had fallen or been dropped. "Elena," I called out. Silence. Not even the sound of movement. Just that thick, uncomfortable quiet that makes your ears ring. Eventually, I convinced myself it was the building settling. Old structures make noises, right? I lay back down. I didn't sleep. The next morning, Elena acted completely normal. She stood in the kitchen, calmly making coffee. No dark circles under her eyes. No sign she'd been awake at all. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked casually. I froze. "Yeah, why?" She stirred her coffee slowly. "This building can be noisy at night." My stomach tightened. I didn't say anything about noise. She looked up at me. For just a second, her expression slipped. Not fear, not anger. Something closer to calculation. Then she smiled again. "You look tired," she said. I didn't push further. I should have. A few nights later, the smell started. At first, it was faint, easy to ignore, a damp, metallic odor that reminded me of wet soil after rain. I assumed it was coming from the pipes. Old buildings have problems like that, but the smell didn't spread evenly. It was strongest near the end of the hallway, near her door. One night, it was so bad it made my eyes water. I opened windows, turned on the fan, sprayed air freshener until the apartment smelled like chemicals instead of rot. Nothing worked. When Elena came home, the smell disappeared within minutes, like it had been sealed away. I tried to joke about it. "Ever notice a weird smell at night?" I asked one evening. She stopped washing her hands, slowly turned to face me. "Does it bother you?" she asked. Her tone wasn't curious. It was careful. "A little," I admitted. She studied my face, searching for something. "If it gets worse," she said finally, "tell me immediately." That night I heard whispering, not words, breathing, right outside my door. I didn't open it. The breaking point came when I noticed something under her door. She had left early that morning. I knew because I heard the locks disengage one by one. Later, as I walked past her room, something caught my eye. A dark line, seeping out from beneath the door. At first, I thought it was a shadow. Then I realized shadows don't spread. I crouched down. The substance was thick, almost black, slowly creeping along the floor like it was alive. And from the narrow gap beneath the door, I heard it, a slow, uneven inhale. Then an exhale. My blood turned to ice. There was something in that room, something breathing. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. That's when I heard the apartment door open. Elena was home. She saw me near her door. Her eyes widened. "What are you doing?" she demanded. I thought I heard something," I stammered. She rushed past me, kneeling instantly to wipe the dark substance away with a cloth she pulled from her pocket, like she'd done this before. "Did you touch it?" she asked urgently. "No." She let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. Then she stood and looked straight at me. "You can't do that again," she said quietly. "You can't stand near my door." "Why?" I asked. Her face hardened. "Because if the door opens," she whispered, "it won't stop at me." That night I didn't lock my door. I sat awake, listening. At 3:01 a.m., I heard it clearly. A voice, not hers, low, wet, struggling to form words. "Let me out." And then, the sound of a lock clicking open. Story 2. The door was never meant to open. The lock clicked, not loudly, just a soft mechanical sound, polite, almost careful. I sat frozen on my bed, staring at my door like it might explode inward at any second. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to get up, to run, to do something, but fear glued me in place. The hallway light flicked on. I could see it through the crack beneath my door. And then, shadows moved, slow, unnatural, too low to the ground. I heard Elena whisper, "Stay back." Her voice shook. Something answered her, a sound that scraped across my nerves, like wet fabric being dragged over gravel. "Hungry." I pressed my hands over my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. There was a long pause. Then I heard the lock click shut again. Silence. No footsteps. No breathing. Nothing. I stayed awake until morning. Elena didn't come out of her room. I called her name, knocked on her door. No answer. The smell was worse than ever. Thick, rotten, layered with something sharp and coppery. My eyes burned. My stomach churned. I was seconds away from calling emergency services when the door finally opened. Elena stepped out. She looked wrong. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Dark veins traced faint lines along her neck. Her eyes were sunken, ringed with deep shadows, like she hadn't slept in days, or like something had been feeding on her. "You heard it, didn't you?" she asked quietly. I didn't pretend. "Yes." She nodded as if confirming something she already knew. "Then we need to talk," she said. She sat across from me at the kitchen table. For the first time since I moved in, she looked nervous, not scared, responsible, like someone who'd made a terrible mistake and finally realized the cost. "I didn't plan for this," she began. "You weren't supposed to stay this long." "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated, then stood up and walked to her room. "Come," she said, "but don't touch anything." Every fiber of my being screamed, "Don't go." I followed anyway. Her room smelled like decay and chemicals. The walls were covered in symbols, drawn in black and red, overlapping in chaotic patterns. Some looked religious. Others looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. Candles sat melted down to stubs along the floor. Chains hung from the ceiling, and in the center of the room, a circle, carved deep into the wooden floor. Inside it, the wood was blackened, cracked and warped, like it had been burned from the inside out. "That circle," Elena said, "is the only reason you're still alive." My throat went dry. "What did you bring into this apartment?" She looked at the circle. "I didn't bring it," she whispered. "I survived it." She told me everything, not all at once, not easily. Years ago, she lived with different roommates. Same kind of setup, shared spaces, cheap rent, quiet people. One night, one of them started sleepwalking, standing outside her door, breathing, whispering in a voice that wasn't his. A week later, he vanished. Then another roommate changed, became withdrawn, started locking herself inside her room. Then she disappeared too. Elena was the only one left. She found the room, found the circle, found it. "It attaches to places," Elena said, "to enclosed spaces, to rooms where people sleep." "And you stayed?" I asked. She looked at me. "Someone had to." I laughed. It came out wrong, thin and hysterical. "You expect me to believe there's some thing living in your room, feeding on people?" Her eyes hardened. "You heard it beg." I had no response. She continued, "It doesn't kill quickly. It gets inside your head first, makes you curious, makes you tired, makes you careless." My stomach dropped. The whispering, the smell, the breathing. "How do you stop it?" I asked. "You don't," she said. "You manage it." She pointed to the chains. "It needs rules, boundaries, a keeper." "And if you fail," I whispered. Her jaw tightened. "It gets out." That night, she locked herself in again. I packed a bag. I didn't care about the lease, didn't care about money. I just wanted out. As I zipped my bag, my phone buzzed. A message from Elena. "Don't leave tonight." Before I could reply, the lights went out. The apartment plunged into darkness. Then, a sound I'll never forget. The circle cracking, wood splitting. Something inside her room screamed. Not in pain, in joy. The chains rattled violently. I ran into the hallway. Elena was already there, blood streaming from her nose. "It's learned," she gasped. "It's learned the rules." The door to her room began to bulge outward, like something was pressing against it from the inside, shaping itself. "Get to your room," she shouted. "Lock the door." "What about you?" She smiled sadly. "I was never meant to leave." The door cracked. A hand pushed through. Too long. Too many joints. Black fluid dripped onto the floor, hissing as it touched the wood. And then it spoke, clearly this time. New roommate. I slammed my door shut and locked it. The walls began to pulse. Something scratched from the other side. Slow, patient, learning. And I realized the truth too late. It didn't want Elena anymore. It wanted me. Story 3. The apartment was changing. I locked my door. Then I pushed my bed against it. Then the dresser. Then I stood there in the dark, holding my breath, listening to something that was no longer pretending to be hidden. The apartment groaned. Not the normal creaking of an old building. This was deeper. Wet, like the walls themselves were shifting their weight. From the hallway came the sound of tearing wood. Elena screamed. Not loud, not dramatic. Just one sharp cry that cut off suddenly, like someone had turned her voice off mid-sentence. I covered my ears. It didn't help. Something heavy dragged itself across the floor. I could hear it clearly now. Every movement slow, deliberate, confident. It had learned. My phone buzzed again. A text. From Elena. It mimics. Don't answer it. Don't look at it. Don't believe anything it says. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Another message followed. If it gets inside your room, you won't die right away. You'll stay. Like me. Something knocked on my door. Once. Soft. Almost polite. Elena, a voice said. My blood ran cold. It was her voice. Perfect. I'm hurt, it continued. Please open the door. I backed away until I hit the wall. No, I whispered. The voice sighed, disappointed. Then the knocking changed. Not knocking anymore. Scratching. Long nails dragging slowly down the door, carving shallow grooves into the wood. I smelled it again. That rotten metallic stench, seeping through the cracks. New rule, the voice said calmly. You don't get to say no. The walls began to sweat. Dark streaks ran downward, dripping onto the floor like blood mixed with oil. The ceiling light flickered, then turned a sickly yellow. The apartment layout felt wrong. My room felt longer. The corners stretched farther away than they should have been. When I took a step forward, the floor dipped slightly, like I was walking on something soft, alive. I heard chains snap, one by one. Each break echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Then silence. A long, patient silence. I didn't realize I was crying until something wet hit my hand. I wiped my face, forcing myself to think. Elena had said it needed rules, boundaries, a keeper, which meant something else too. It didn't exist on its own. It needed a host, a space, a person. I thought of Elena's tired eyes, her locked door, her constant checking of boundaries. She hadn't been living with it. She had been feeding it herself. My phone buzzed again. Another text. There is a way out, but it costs more than rent. I stared at the screen. How? I typed. The reply came instantly. Someone has to stay. Someone has to replace me. The scratching stopped. The silence pressed in so tightly it felt like my ears would burst. Then the voice spoke again. Right against my door. You don't have to be afraid, it said gently. She was tired, worn out. The door bowed inward. A crack formed down the center. I'll take better care of you. I grabbed the lamp and smashed it against the door. The bulb shattered. Sparks flew. Something shrieked on the other side. High-pitched, furious, no longer pretending to be human. The door split open. Not wide, just enough. An eye pressed against the gap. Too many pupils. Blinking sideways. It stared directly at me. I felt something push into my head. Memories surfaced that weren't mine. Dark rooms, People standing frozen at doors, hands covering mouths. Years passing without sunlight. I screamed. The pressure vanished. The eye pulled back. Laughter echoed through the apartment. You felt it, the thing crooned. You belong here already. The hallway lights came on suddenly. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but my room was no longer safe. The hallway stretched impossibly long, doors lining both sides. None of them looked familiar. I reached the end and found Elena's room open. Inside, the circle was shattered, the symbols smeared, distorted, bleeding into one another. And Elena, she was chained to the wall, alive, barely. Her eyes fluttered open when she saw me. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. It's not bound anymore, I said desperately. What do I do? She smiled weakly. You choose. The air behind me thickened. Footsteps, slow, heavy. It can't leave the apartment, Elena continued, but it can change who the apartment belongs to. The thing's shadow stretched across the floor. If you leave, she said, it will follow the space. Another building, another room, another you. My chest tightened. And if I stay? Elena's voice broke. Then it lets me go. The thing stepped into the room, no longer hiding its shape. Too tall, too thin, skin moving like it didn't quite fit. It crouched beside Elena, brushing her hair back tenderly. She's right, it said. One of you stays. One of you walks free. It turned to me. Choose. I looked at Elena, at the chains, at the ruined circle, at the door behind me, already shrinking, already sealing itself shut. And I realized the worst truth of all. The apartment didn't trap people. People trapped people. And the thing just waited. Story 4, Someone Always Stays. The thing waited. It didn't rush me, didn't threaten. It knew time worked for it. The apartment hummed softly like a living body at rest. The walls no longer bled, but they felt tight, closer than before. The hallway behind me had shrunk to half its size. The door at the end wasn't a door anymore, just a smooth stretch of wall, as if it had never existed. There was no exit, only a choice. Elena's breathing was shallow. Each inhale rattled in her chest like it might be the last. The chains around her wrists were no longer metal. They had fused into the wall, growing out of it like veins. I didn't mean for this, she whispered. At first I thought I could control it. The thing tilted its head, listening fondly. She lasted longer than the others, it said. She was careful. She followed the rules. What rules? I asked hoarsely. It smiled. Don't open the door. Don't invite anyone in. And never, ever leave without a replacement. My stomach dropped. Elena closed her eyes. I broke the last rule when I let you move in. I backed away until my spine hit the wall. The wall felt warm, alive. So this apartment, I said slowly, it's not just a place. The thing nodded. It's a body. I am what lives inside it. And Elena? She is what feeds me. It turned to her, brushing a long finger down her cheek. She flinched. She learned quickly, it continued. Gave me pieces of herself. Sleep, time, memory. I realized then why she always looked tired, why her eyes were hollow, why she never had visitors. She hadn't been living. She'd been eroding. You said I already belong here, I said. Why? The thing stepped closer. The air grew thick, heavy with that metallic rot. Because you listened, it said softly. You noticed the sounds, the smells. You didn't run when you should have. Its mouth stretched wider than it should have. Curiosity opens doors faster than keys. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One last message from Elena, sent seconds ago. If you stay, it ends with you. If you leave, it never ends. I looked at her. Why didn't you just leave earlier? I asked. Tears slipped from her eyes. Because it showed me what would happen, she said. Other rooms, other people, the same thing, over and over. The thing leaned in close to my ear. I don't chase, it whispered. I wait. The apartment shifted. The floor beneath Elena cracked open, revealing darkness below. Endless, breathing darkness. She screamed. I moved without thinking. I grabbed the nearest chain and pulled. The chain burned my hands, skin blistering instantly. But I didn't let go. I dragged her free just as the floor sealed shut again. The thing screamed then, not in pain, in rage. You weren't supposed to do that, it roared. The walls shook violently. Symbols reappeared on the floor, glowing faintly. Elena collapsed against me, sobbing. I'm sorry, she gasped. I didn't think you'd actually choose me. I stared at her. I didn't. The thing froze. What? It hissed. I stood up slowly, placing Elena behind me. I choose the apartment, I said. Silence. The thing laughed. You can't take it with you. I don't need to, I replied. I just need to stay. Understanding flickered across its shifting face. Fear. The symbols on the floor ignited, burning themselves back into the wood. The chain snapped, not outward but inward, wrapping around the thing's limbs, dragging it back toward the center of the room. No, it snarled. You don't know the rules. I do now, I said. I looked at Elena. Leave, I told her. Don't look back. Don't stop. She hesitated. And you? I smiled. The saddest smile I've ever worn. Someone always stays. The door behind her reappeared, wide open. For the first time since I'd moved in, real air rushed into the apartment. Cold, clean, alive. Elena ran. The door slammed shut behind her, locked. The thing thrashed violently, screaming as the chains pulled it down. You think this ends you? It spat. You'll fade. You'll forget who you are. I know, I said. The chains tightened. The room darkened. The apartment exhaled. That was years ago. I don't know how many. Time doesn't work the same here. The apartment is quiet again, peaceful even. I keep the rules. I lock the door. I don't invite anyone in. And when the whispers start, I remind it who's in control. Sometimes I hear footsteps outside the apartment. Someone reading the listing. Private room available. Quiet apartment. One roommate. I delete the listing every time. But it always comes back because the apartment wants to be full. And one day, I know I'll be too tired to stop it.